I'm Vicky and this is Cat Mom Craft, and this is Crochet and Chat today. Hi, I'm sorry, I was just having to look where my first stitch was. This week's crochet, crochet and chat today, I'm going to be doing the M stitch tag that Sam and Mike from Memphis Makes came up with, and hopefully plod through a fair old bit of finishing this cardie. So let's move that over there so I can actually see what I'm doing and get myself in a comfortable position. Right, so I'm going to be answering for both knitting a little bit and crochet, as much as I can. For knitting, I would have included Tunisian, but literally I've done a row or 4 rows or whatever it is of Tunisian crochet, so I don't have that much experience. So I'm going to answer each question in turn, dealing first with crochet. Actually, no, I'll deal with knitting first and then crochet. And I'll also try not to miss a stitch while I'm at it. So, question 1 is, what is your favourite stitch for wearables? And mine for knitting is stockinette, you know, the traditional one. Well, I remember this cardigan is hand knitted, but not by me, it's my mum. And at some point I might have to see if I can commandeer the pattern to make a slightly bigger, God, I can't talk today, bigger, different version of it. And also because it's a kind of stitch combination that I've never tried before. Right, so that was for wearables knitting, stockinette. For wearables crochet, half double, half treble in England, although I was taught using US terms, so that's kind of the one I stick to, because it's still nice and drapey and it works up relatively quickly, but it's less gappy than double, so it makes for a more solid yet drapey piece. Didn't make any sense, I realise that, I apologise, but I know what I mean. Question 2, favourite stitch for the household, so like cushions and tea towels, etc. And knitting, I've not made anything yet of that ilk, so I don't have a favourite stitch. But for crochet, it's got to be the Jacob's ladder. I'm on the grounds that I have a cushion in Jacob's ladder. So, yeah, I don't make a lot of household items. But as I say, I have made a cushion in Jacob's ladder, so I'll go with that one. Oh, actually no, I've done one in the waffle stitch as well. I quite like the waffle stitch for a cushion. It just makes it really comfy. Question 3. Favourite stitch for blankets. So knitting, it's garter stitch. I just think it makes it a bit more puffier and nicer and warmer. And it's easier to remember when you don't have to knit one way and purl the other. You can just knit, knit. And in Crochet, it's the double crochet, triple in UK, in assorted forms even. Can't read my own scribble half the time. So my favourite method of making blankets is corner to corner, including corner to corner graphgans, although I do read them backwards, which is odd. Don't know why, always have done. I mean, it still works out the same. I just read them that way to that way. So that way, wait, no, you're the opposite way around to me. So for you, I start in the left and go right. Whereas most people, if they're right-handed, start in the right and go left, I believe, for reading your graphgans. But other than that, generally corner to corner, in solid, or the ever traditional granny square where you just get going and go round and round and round and round and round and round and round. Although I do like, although perhaps less so at the moment, granny squares made up of individual squares. We're only at question 4 now. Question 4, what is your least favourite stitch? Single crochet. It takes too long. It's useful for some things like amigurumi, so it's not gappy, and if you want something really solid, but it just takes absolutely forever to work up. Knitting, I'm not sure if I've got the technical term, but it's like ribbing, twisted ribbing, that's the one, that's what it's called. It took me a while to get my head around doing ribbing. So twisted ribbing, I tried it once, got in a horrible tangle and had a paddy. So yeah, currently twisted ribbing, although that's not to say that at some point in the future I may not peer carefully at it and have another go. Least favourite way of joining. For knitting, it's the mattress stitch. I'll whip things together till it goes out of fashion, and I quite like sewing. So it's like a least favourite sewing method for both of them. But for knitting, it's the mattress stitch. Because it is a bit more fiddly when you working with small yarn. And for crochet, it's the zigzag joining stitch. I'm sure there are some wonderful tutorials out there. I have tried and tried and tried, but it just makes my head hurt at the moment. But again, it's useful for if you've got things of different sizes that need to be joined together. And it's quite a decorative join when it's not making my head hurt. So again, it will quite possibly be revisited at some point. In fact, it almost definitely will be, because I've got a different size blanket to make at some point. So question 6. What stitch have you not tried yet but want to? For knitting, this would be brioche, where you sort of work 2 rows at once in different colours. It looks amazing, and it also looks amazingly complicated. But again, I'm fully going to attempt to try that next year. For crochet, I've heard it called 2 different things, which I think is the same thing. But I could be getting that wrong completely, and it could be called something else. I've heard it called what I think is the moss stitch, and also the linen stitch. The one where you do a single crochet, chain one, skip one, single crochet, chain one, skip one, and then in the row after you do your crochets in the gap. Does that sound about right? Again, something I want to attempt next year at some point. So I'm going to have to A, decide if it is the same thing, and B, track down a tutorial that makes sense. Because just to see if I have got like the right idea and I'm not driving at something completely else, something else entirely. And also, like, how do you do the first row? You just do the first row singles or doubles or whoever all the way along? I don't know. So, question 7. What type of crochet or knitting do I most enjoy? So like traditional, mosaic, tapestry, Tunisian. I do quite like Tunisian, I've just not done a vast amount of it. Knitting traditional, I've not come across any other methods of attempting it. And crochet, it would be solid corner to corners or just traditional. Although, as I say, I do like Tunisian, I just need to do a bit more work on it. 8. What stitch most impresses you? For crochet, that's definitely mosaic. I cannot do it. I will be having an attempt in the future again when I've got over my dislike of it. I just can't get my head around it. And for knitting, it's either cabling or brioche, because A, I've not tried brioche, and B, I have tried cabling and I've decided I need like at least another hand to be able to produce anything that's not a tangled mess. I dare say I will get my head around it eventually, but that time has not yet come. Question 9. What stitch do you, is there a stitch you loathe and will avoid patterns that contain it? So knitting, it's the twisted rib. Although again, at some point I may, now that I'm starting to get my head around ribbing, I may give it another go. Because at the time I attempted it, I'd not ribbed anything. Like, I'd knit flat panels off of ribbing that my mum had done. So, you know, I'm not saying definitely no for that one. I'm just saying no at the moment. Crochet is peak. I hate it with a passion. I genuinely, loathe is the right word. And it's not that I will avoid patterns with a stitch. I just ignore the existence of the stitch. It doesn't do anything. It just sits there being cute. Like, if it had a use, like crochet into the picot for the 2 rounds down or something, yeah, fine, okay, it's an anchor point for a stitch, great, it does something. Otherwise it's a loop that just sits there being loopy. I hate it. So unless it serves a purpose, generally I ignore its existence and carry on regardless. And what is your generalist favourite basic and combination? So for Knitting, it's stockinette, the one where you knit one row, purl one row, knit one, purl one, blah 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 blah. For crochet, my general favoritist, most ever basic is basic stitch is the half double. I find I use that a lot more than pretty much everything else. For clothes, for blankets, you name it. If I can stick an half double in it, I will do. But combination is the cluster. I love how the cluster looks. I genuinely do. Kind of vaguely reminiscent in a non-girly girl way of rose petals. I don't know why. But that's the way it is. So, in next month's Crochet and Chatter Day, I'm just looking down. Yes, next month's Crochet and Chatter Day is going to be a more in-depth look at the segments that I do, including ones that are coming next year, because next year I'm really upping my make-along game again. I have to. I did little fiddly bits this year, and whilst I don't have the patience for a lot of things, like things that come out weekly, apart from Title of the Week, I have no patience for. No. Title of the Week I can generally do in a day. But quite often make-alongs that are weekly that you just get a little bit and a little bit, and I ain't got the patience for that. Monthly I can do more because I can get it done, pop it aside and set my calendar. But my make-along game has really dropped out this year. So next year I'm doing a blanket crochet make-along, a knitted crochet make-along if I can find one that doesn't make me want to cry. Heather's Stranger Summer make-along, and next year I'm going to have another go at the Stephen West MCAL. I might also buy, later on and down the line, I might buy the pattern for this year's and see how I go with it, but you know, no promises. I've got too much to do this year. Monday, you're going to see me packing for Yarndale. A week earlier well, a few days earlier than I would be. Then we've got the usual What the Book Wednesday, Title of the Week, Is It Finished Friday, and then I'm actually at Yarndale. So it's not going to be too bad. So, after this, I'm going to have some lunch, finish my Muses Mingo cardi off, yay! Dive headfirst into the Monster Puff, and generally have an evening. I need to tag someone. I need to tag some people. So I'm going to tag Samantha at Amethyst Craftworks, Bella at Bella's Crochet Gifts, and who do I watch that I know hasn't been tagged yet? I'm going to tag Heather the Crochet Witch. So, I'll consider it an open tag as well if I've not named you directly. I'll put the questions in my description down below. and I will see you in the future, both your future and my future. I'm going to stop talking before I start talking utter scribble. So, with that in mind, look after yourselves, because if you don't look after yourselves, you can't look after anyone else. And in the immortal words of Bill and Ted, be excellent to one another. Bye.